Thank you very much. Yeah, so as you might see, my paper for today is role of non-profit sector in the cultural diplomacy of Ukraine, Kyiv Contemporary Music Days approach. And I would like to start from what is modern cultural diplomacy, just I think rather quickly. According to Milton Cummings, the founder and the president of the Institute of World Politics in Washington, D.C., cultural diplomacy is a type of public diplomacy and an integral part of a soft power policy, which includes the exchange of ideas, information, art, and other aspects of culture among nations, their peoples, in order to foster mutual understanding. Um, the distinction of culture diplomacy as a direction of foreign policy is associated with understanding culture as a source of the state's strengths and capacity in the international arena. Culture embodies and it presents the values of society. And through culture, we share our values and experience with others and achieve better understanding and active cooperation between countries. Uh, in this context, culture is to be regarded broadly and include not only art but also science, education, heritage, values, language, and experience in building civil society. According to British Council research from 2008, trust in a country increases its economic performance. The growth of trust is largely influenced by cultural diplomacy, and which the advisory committee of cultural diplomacy of the US Department of State has called the foundation of truth. Tom Cardill, executive director of British Foreign Policy Group, points out that, and I quote, to trust someone does not always mean you agree with them, but it certainly helps to share the same values. Cultural diplomacy plays an important role in strengthening national security. And in addition, cultural ties are becoming the basis of overcoming crises and conflicts between countries, and they contribute to resumption of cooperation. Cultural diplomacy is a crucial component of soft power, and it was originally introduced by Harvard University professor John Noy in 1990. And unlike hard power, which relies on economic and military strengths, soft power encompasses various factors that shape international relations. The rise of globalization has amplified the significance of the soft power. Um, Cultural diplomacy is not a new practice for Ukrainian state institutions, but only after 2016 it began to acquire the characteristic of a systemic state policy. Back in 2006, the Cabinet of Ministers established the cultural and information centers within 31 foreign diplomatic missions, and currently most centers lack the resources to fully operate. And in 2016, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs created a Department of Cultural Diplomacy, which developed mechanism and methodology implemented by Ukrainian embassies and consulates abroad. These developments also laid the foundation for the concept of the Ukrainian Institute as a specialized state institution for cultural diplomacy. Uh, what are the key goals that summarize the objectives of cultural diplomacy? Um, the goals of cultural diplomacy can be summarized in four following points. Facilitating cooperation and influence. Cultural diplomacy seeks to encourage greater collaboration and engagement with other countries. Driving political and cultural change. Cultural diplomacy tries to bring political and cultural transformation in foreign lands. Promoting a positive image, culture diplomacy aims to foster a favorable perception of a country, its people, cultures, and policies, and conflict prevention and management. Culture diplomacy tries to manage and prevail conflicts with another countries. Now let's see how Kyiv Contemporary Music Days NGO works with these four goals. But first of all, it's worth mentioning what Kyiv Contemporary Music Days is. Kyiv Contemporary Music Days, or KCMD, is an educational and concert platform for new music. The organization conducted its first event on December 11th, 2015. When the first festival took place. And from 2015 to 2023, KCMD has held more than 150 events, including more than 70 concerts, 32 lectures, 9 international masterclasses for composers and performers, 4 workshops, and a series of 9 audiovisual works posted on Facebook and YouTube. And starting from the March 2022, KCMD has been running a special project called KCMD Fund in order to help musicians who suffered from the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And of course, it is worth mentioning that in Ukraine there are a number of institutions of a similar type who, in one way or another, consciously or unconsciously, are working on a similar tasks. For example, it's the festivals 2 days and 2 nights of New Music, Kyiv Music Fest, Kharkiv Music Fest, Contrast Festival in Lviv, Lutkevich Fest, and then also Ucho Agency, Nova Opera, Opera Aperta, Open Opera, and number of others. So, does KCMD cooperates and interacts with the representatives of other countries? There are some levels of how KCMD interacts with representatives of other countries. Originally, it was programmed as a festival of new music, and the founders of KCMD were the guitarist Francisco Moraes Franco from Portugal, clarinetist Darko Horvatic from Serbia and Croatia, violinist Julia Mykhailo from Japan, and composer and pianist Albert Saprykin from Ukraine. Secondly, from the very beginning, the institution actively invited composers, soloists, conductors, and ensembles from all over the world to Ukraine. For example, during 2016 festival, the most visible performance were Jaime Reich from Portugal, Julia Mykhailo from Japan, Artur Zobnin from Russia, from St. Petersburg, and Albert Saprykin from Ukraine, and Zed Contra ensemble from Ukraine. During international masterclasses, you could meet musicians from all over the world. For example, during the masterclasses in September 2007, it was possible to meet representatives from 3 continents as mentors and students. And in the role of mentors, there were Alaza Gajkevich from Ukraine, Oke Parmerut from Sweden, Mehmet Canozer from Turkey, and Jan Raj from Portugal. And the students were from Italy, USA, Ukraine, Sweden, China, Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Turkey, Australia. And in total, from 2015, KCMD attracted representatives from 27 countries. And last but not least, KCMD regularly cooperates with major international cultural or cultural diplomacy institutions. For example, Goethe Institute, Institut Français, British Council, and von Siemens Music Foundation, Initiative Neue Musik, Berlin, Impulse Festival, foreign embassies, and many more. Second important point, does the KCMD stimulate political and cultural change? Well, through relatively short history, KCMD has made significant international appearances besides events in Ukraine, including the festival in Lisbon that was held in 2017, where they showcased various Ukrainian compositions, including the Portuguese premiere of Gudziacki, Fratres Disruptions, Silvestro's Sonata No. 2, Lugnow's Mardonks, and the world premiere of Adrian Mocano String Quartet, commissioned specifically for this festival by KCMD. As well as there were showcased Ukrainian musicians and Ukrainian ensembles such as the Napoli String Quartet and Antoni Barashevsky. Also, KCMD acted as a co-producer of the Mishima Contemporary Music Days in Japan, and KCMD facilitated the presentation of Ukrainian music and ensembles. Alongside mentioned performers performed in Lisbon, there were artists like Nazari Stets and Albert Saprokin as a pianist, and Nazari Stets as a double bassist. And currently, KCMD is actively engaged in planning a series of events in Berlin, which will similarly incorporate both Ukrainian and international components. So, undoubtedly, these initiatives play a crucial role in spreading awareness and understanding of Ukrainian music culture, effectively putting Ukraine on a cultural roadmap. As a result, they contribute to shifting perceptions and attitudes toward the country and its rich artistic heritage. Third, does KCMD aim to foster favorable perception of the country, its people, culture, and policies? Well, through creation numerous, from my perspective, highly quality musical projects, often with an emphasis, especially during the last couple of years, on the Ukrainian component and providing opportunities for cultural exchange, KCMD contributes to improving the perception of Ukraine in the eyes of foreigners who work on a field of new music, often changing their view, which unfortunately is often associated with rather tragic concepts such as war, Chernobyl tragedy, corruption, and other not very pleasant stereotypes. And the fourth one, does KCMD make an effort to prevent conflicts with foreign countries? Russian propaganda attempts to picture Ukrainians as flawed individuals with, let's say, specific political views, portraying the country almost as a failed state. And dealing with such a sensitive topic is pretty challenging. And back in 2016, when the issue of public performances by Russian citizens was not as big as it is now, KCMD invited Russian performer Artur Zobnin, followed by composer Mariana Lysenko from Moscow in 2017. And this invitation aimed to demonstrate that Ukraine holds no negative prejudice against particular nationalities by showcasing this, exclusively, the KCMD highlighted society's readiness to create a public good that embraces people of all nationalities, religions, and skin colors. And in conclusion, I would like to emphasize the importance of the activities of NGOs in the field of cultural diplomacy, and to crystallize several points which are also fair for KCMD, namely why such institutions are extremely important for the functioning of this field. First one, due to the streamlined bureaucracies and smaller teams, NGO exhibit greater mobility, enabling them to swiftly respond to cultural changes that require adaptation. Second is cultural NGOs possess a profound personal touch that is one of the most important things in establishing strong cultural connections. Similar to volunteering phenomenon witnessed in Ukraine during the war, cultural NGOs should not aim to replace the state in their activities, but rather complement its efforts. They should operate on smaller scales where the state may lack resources or show limited interest in niche cultural projects. By doing so, these NGOs assist the cultural policies initiated by the government and provide support in areas where official institutions may face limitations. They serve as valuable allies, working hand in hand with the state to strengthen cultural initiatives and lend a helping hand in situations where government bodies may not be able to operate in full capacity. And the last one, during these, due to their smaller size and kind of reduced responsibilities, cultural NGOs have the opportunity to engage in experimentation and develop innovative approaches to cultural diplomacy. This freedom allows them to explore new methods and formats without political and social pressure that face larger state institutions. By conducting such experiments, NGO can enhance their experience, and if it is successful, their strategies can serve as a kind of models for larger players to adopt and scale in their own institutions' practices. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.